and welcome to the third episode of the EFRAG Financial Reporting Update, covering developments that took place in February. In this episode, we will touch upon events, open consultations and other news, and publications. We will also provide an overview of the discussions held in the EFRAG Financial Reporting Board, or FRB, and EFRAG Financial Reporting Technical Expert Group, or EFRAG-FRTEG meetings that were held in February. In relation to events, EFRAG on the 6th of February, along with ABF/BVFA, the Belgian Association of Financial Analysts, and CNC/CBN, the Belgian Standard Setter, co-hosted an event titled Financial Reporting What's Ahead for 2025, focus on investors and analysts-oriented projects. As you can guess by the title, this event focused on upcoming financial reporting developments that will bear a significance for users of financial statements. In the event, emphasis was placed on gathering timely feedback from users in the standard setting process, and stakeholders in this respect were encouraged to provide their views on EFRAG's draft endorsement advice on IFRS 18, as well as on the statement of cash flows and intangibles projects. You can find out more about the event by accessing the recording or reading the summary report that are both available on EFRAG's website. Touching on open consultations, at the time of publication of this episode, EFRAG has 3 financial reporting related ones out for comments. The first pertains to EFRAG's draft endorsement advice on IFRS 18 that is out for comments until the 26th of March. In addition, there is a survey targeted to preparers of financial statements of rate-regulated entities until the 31st of March, as well as our discussion paper on the statement of cash flows. We invite stakeholders to respond to the questions posed in the discussion paper by the 15th of May. Lastly, I would like to point out that EFRAG's draft comment letter on the IFRS Foundation's Due Process Handbook, which covers both financial reporting and sustainability reporting matters, is also out for comment until the 24th of March. There is less than a week to go for that. Moving on, as mentioned before, we would welcome your input on EFRAG's draft endorsement advice on IFRS 18 by the 26th of March. Why IFRS 18 matters? This new standard is expected to bring about significant enhancements in financial reporting, including the presentation of newly defined subtotals in the statement of profit or loss and the classification of income and expenses in 5 defined categories, the disclosure of information about management-defined performance measures, and enhanced requirements for the aggregation and disaggregation of information in both the primary financial statements and the notes. Of note, our preliminary assessment is that IFRS 18 meets the endorsement criteria set out in the EU. You can find both in the update and on the website the form via which you can provide us with your input. In February, EFRAG also launched 2 surveys related to the IASB's exposure draft provisions targeted improvements. The first survey covered various aspects of the ED and was primarily addressed at preparers and auditors of financial statements. The second survey was referring to when a provision for a levy should be recognized, and it was aimed at users of financial statements. Both of these surveys and the input we received via them will contribute to the finalization of our comment letter on the IASB's exposure draft. With respect to publications, EFRAG published 2 feedback statements in February. They refer to our consultation processes to provide input to the IASB on their exposure drafts on climate-related and other uncertainties in the financial statements, and on updating IFRS 19 subsidiaries without public accountability disclosures. The feedback statements outline stakeholders' responses, including responses to our draft comment letters, and they also explain how this input was taken into consideration in EFRAG's final positions as reflected in EFRAG's final comment letters. Proceeding with the meetings, I will start with the 2-day EFRAG-FRTEG meeting held on 11 and 12 February. On 11 February, 2 sessions were covered. The first one was a presentation on how academics can contribute to the financial reporting standard setting process. The presentation was given by Andrea Lionzo, who is an EFRAG FRTEG member and the chair of EFRAG's academic panel, and Dan Jorisen, who is the European Accounting Association's Financial Reporting Standards Committee chair. The second session related to the IASB's project rate-regulated activities. Members agreed with the proposed plan to discuss the IASB's tentative decisions on the upcoming standard in the forthcoming EFRAG FRTEG meetings. They also highlighted the importance of understanding the results of the survey EFRAG launched addressed to preparers of financial statements. The results will be discussed in the EFRAG FRTEG May meeting, so stay tuned. On 12 February, there were two more sessions on IFRS 19 and provisions targeted improvements. With regard to IFRS 19, EFRAG FRTEG members discussed the endorsement plan and provided views on the EFRAG Secretariat's assessment of the proportionality principle as per the EU Accounting Directive in light of the compatibility analysis made with IFRS 19. They also discussed the possibility of making a carve-out to IFRS 19 in response to specific requests by the European Commission. Members agreed with the endorsement timeline, provided suggestions for the compatibility analysis, and agreed not to make a carve-out to IFRS 19. In relation to provisions, EFRAG FRTEG discussed the preliminary input received from stakeholders and considered that further work was needed on the proposals, particularly in relation to the present obligation recognition criterion, for which significant concerns were raised. However, most members were of the view that the IASB should continue its work on the proposal. Moreover, in February, one EFRAG FRB meeting took place on the 27th of the month. In that meeting, two topics were discussed, again IFRS 19 and provisions targeted improvements. As regards IFRS 19, the EFRAG FRB agreed with the EFRAG Secretariat's proposed endorsement plan and expressed support for endorsing IFRS 19 in the EU, highlighting that although it is a voluntary standard, it is expected to bring about benefits. On provisions, the EFRAG FRB discussed the preliminary input received from stakeholders, as was the case in the TEG meeting of February, and an analysis on the interaction of the proposals with US GAAP. EFRAG FRB decided to include in EFRAG's final comment letter a recommendation to the IASB to split the project, proceeding swiftly with the proposals relating to the measurement, namely those referring to the expenditure required to settle a provision and those referring to the discount rate, while taking more time to consider the proposals relating to the present obligation recognition criterion, for which members aired significant concerns akin to EFRAG FRTEG members. To be noted that the final comment letter of EFRAG on the IASB's exposure draft on provisions is to be discussed in March, so stay tuned for further developments in the space. As a concluding remark, the EFRAG FRB and EFRAG FRTEG held and will hold meetings in March, and there was also a joint EFRAG FRB and EFRAG FRTEG meeting held on the 6th of March, as well as an EFRAG FRTEG CFSS meeting on the 10th of March. You can learn more about these meetings on our website, and you will hear about them in the March episode of the update as well. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.